Alrighty, morning everyone, and welcome back to another beautiful video on this beautiful channel on another beautiful day. In today's video, I want to talk to you about some reasons why gold and silver might drop in price, might go down in price. Now, that might seem a bit weird to most of you because, this is a channel about precious metals and we like precious metals here. And I agree with that, but that is actually a question that I got from a viewer of mine a couple of days, well, probably weeks by now, back. And I thought it was interesting. And I thought, well, I didn't make a video about that already, so might as well. And this is not just to say, gold and silver are definitely going to go down in price or whatever. I don't think so. You know my opinion about that. But I think it's interesting. And I think it's another interesting part that you need to know about gold and silver if you want to, know more about it. I think that's a reasonable explanation for that. And it makes some people mad that, don't like me or whatever, so that's always fun. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do that today. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about that, and I think it's actually gonna be pretty interesting. Before we do that though, we'll take a look at all the stuff that I brought for you today. So first of all, 1 ounce gold Krugerrand from the year of 1980. I had this coin with me last time and I liked it, so I just brought it back. How about that? Really good coin for stacking gold in general, but you gotta take a look at the markup, because markups can be a bit funny on those, and different years have different markups and stuff like that. But that's pretty much the case with any coin on the market. So yeah. Next one, Australian Emu, really beautiful coin. I really like those. And I'm very happy that I got a few of those. I unfortunately don't have the 2022 version, but that might change in the future. We'll see. Next one is the Australian Nugget Hand of Faith from the year of 2020. Really beautiful coin. I do have every one of those, I think. I might not have the current one, the 2022 version with a Nugget Little Hero. I'll have to check, but I don't think so. So yeah, but beautiful coin series from the Perth Mint. Really nice. And the last one is a 1910 German 20 mark coin, gold coin. Sometimes easy to get, sometimes a bit hard to get, sometimes a bit expensive. Just gotta look at the prices if you are interested in getting those. But they are interesting and they look kind of nice. So yeah, that's a cool thing. So now, the price of gold and silver. I think we'll start with the price of silver because that's a little bit easier to explain. And there's some more reasons why silver might go down in price as opposed to gold, just because silver is a very volatile metal in general. So, first issue is, of course, the problem with the production of silver. Now you might say to yourself, well, what production of silver problem does he mean now? Well, in general, the production of silver is very based on other metals, copper, nickel, and gold, for example, right? Silver is produced as a byproduct of those metals mainly. There are also some other smaller ones, magnesium and stuff like that. You know what I mean, right? And that is an issue potentially because if there's a increased need for any of those metals, like significantly increased, not like 5% or something like that, significantly increased demand for any of those three metals, the production of those will go up. Not necessarily very fast, because if you're sitting at your desk one day and the price of copper goes up, you're not going to jump to your feet and scream, I'm going to start a copper mine now or whatever. That's obviously not going to happen, but it takes some time, but it will increase over time, right? And with that, the production of silver will also increase. Now, that might not be a bad thing necessarily, because the demand of silver is also going to increase in the future, but we had about 1,000 tons of surplus last year in 2021. So the problem with that is if the production of silver increases to maybe like 40,000 tons over like a few years, right? Which would be about 8,000 to 9,000 tons more than we are producing right now, then we would have a bigger surplus. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing for industries and stuff like that, because they can just buy a little bit more of it and things like that. However, the problem with that is that the price of silver, and that is another problem why the price of silver might go down in the future, is not a very logical thing. And it's not a thing that is very based on the physical market of silver. It is very based on the digital demand for it, right? Because there's approximately 300 times more silver traded on the stock market than there is physically available. So that is obviously a big gap. And what happens on the stock market is not relevant on things that actually happen in the physical world. You've seen that in 2021 when basically everyone was kind of expecting, oh yeah, inflation is transitory, we're just going to ignore that until it's gone. Didn't work very well, but everyone kind of just, went with it and the market behaved accordingly and went up. Now, if the price of silver is expected to go down because the availability of silver becomes, increased, let's just say, then you get into a situation where it's most likely going to go down. Why is that? Well, because people are then going to sell it. Because if the price is not, expected to go up, people usually sell stuff on the market. That is how it works. Unless you want to hold it, of course. But, most people that just want a quick profit, which is most people on the stock market, they're just going to sell it. So that is a risk that might become reality in the future. But you know what? We'll have to see about that. Now, another thing, of course, is just in general decrease in demand on the stock market. How can that happen? Well, silver is a metal that has some, or actually a lot of crisis protection properties, let's just call it, right? A lot of abilities to protect you and your financial situation from potential financial crises, or crises. I think that's a plural of crisis, from both your personal and also in general, like your countries or whatever point of view. So if that decreases by, the times getting a little bit less unsafe, or a little bit more safe, most people would probably say, then you would get into a situation where, again, the demand on the market is probably going to decrease because there's just not enough reason for silver prices to go up, for people to, if they just want to make a quick profit, to continue holding it. That is not really what I believe. I don't think that is the right way to go about it, but that's just how the market works, so we don't have to argue about that. So that is another reason why silver might drop in price. Now, another reason, potential reason, is of course because we have to raise interest rates at the moment. Central banks have to raise interest rates because they ignored inflation for a bit too long and that didn't go very well. So now we have to raise interest rates, which is not that bad because, now you're finally getting a little bit of interest back on the money that you're just leaving on your bank account, which is also not bad. But the thing is, with that bigger companies don't have as much access to cheap money as they had before, or no access at all, actually. So, or to the prices that they got before all of this, interest rallying up. But that is another thing that might influence the price of silver. If, for example, just an example, it doesn't have to be the case, we'll just have to see about that. But if, for example, the prices of consumer goods continue to climb up a little bit more, and they just stay flat after that, which is what is likely going to happen if you continue to raise interest rates, then you're getting to the point where the market doesn't get any cheap money anymore. Prices are still high, though, for consumer goods. And so people are definitely just going to buy less because there's just less money to go around. And that is obviously going to influence certain industries. Most industries use silver nowadays in some way or another. And so by that, the demand of silver from, an industrial standpoint, an industrial point of view, might decrease. Might decrease significantly, but probably will decrease at least a little bit. So that's another thing that might cause the price of silver to go down. Do I believe that is necessarily going to happen? It might. That's actually the most reasonable point of these, actually, in my opinion. But even with this one, we'll just have to see. Now, gold. Gold is a little bit similar, but also vastly different. Let me explain. Of course, gold is not the same as far as production goes, with silver being mainly produced as a byproduct from mining, gold, or other like base metals and stuff like that, or semi-precious metals like copper. Gold is mainly produced on its own, right? It's mainly produced for the actual gold, not like silver, which is produced as a byproduct, which I've said like 3 times now, so I'm going to stop. But the issue, or rather the pretty good thing about that, is that with gold we won't really have a situation like we could have with silver, with the demand of other metals just getting driven up and then it just going down in price because there's more on the market than we actually need. That is very unlikely with gold because most gold is produced for the gold. So if you don't really want to sell gold for a certain price, you just don't produce that much and the price can stay very stable that way. Silver is overall a very volatile metal in comparison to gold, so that makes sense. So the problem that might still occur though is with bigger discoveries of gold content in the ground. We had something like that in Uganda a few months back. I don't know if you remember that, where the government from them basically said, yeah, we found like 200,000 tons of gold. Well, they of course didn't. They swapped the comma somewhere and it's like a tenth of that or even 100th. So yeah, this is not really that easy, but there could potentially be bigger accumulations of gold still out there. The supply might increase because of that, and that might be a reason why the price of gold might go down. That's a lot of mights though, you might have already figured that one out. So it's unlikely. Yeah, let's just put it that way. It's quite unlikely because we have explored most of the world by now and there isn't really any gold laying around in vast quantities anymore. Besides in Australia, that place is very suspect to me because there's like gold laying around everywhere. But, you know, besides that, not really that much. So what might other reasons be why the price of gold might go down? Another one is kind of related to the industrial side of things as well, with the jewelry industry. Jewelry is, of course, a very luxurious branch of products. And, you know, jewelry is also usually quite expensive, especially jewelry made from real gold. However, the price of gold is not really relevant for the price of the jewelry. It's just a carrying medium, so to say, to be able to sell it to for a much higher margin to customers because you can say, oh, look, that's gold. Now, the good thing, or maybe the issue for that for the producers, is that they can just lower the price of that stuff quite easily because it usually has a 5x or 6x or maybe even 10 or 20x markup. So the price of gold is not very relevant for that. So in the future, prices of that might just get decreased and demand might not go down a lot. Possible. However, quite likely not. Because with consumer prices of stuff going up in general, people are going to be able to afford less of everything, right? It's just the way it goes, which is not really a problem usually for like 90+% of people in first world countries because we've got a lot of money anyways, right? So it's not that bad, but still you're just going to be able to afford less over time with stuff like energy costs and stuff like that going up in price, which is not very nice. And in many countries, that's just because the government was a little bit incapable of coping with situations the right way. But this might be a reason why the price of gold might go down because it's obviously a driving factor for demand. Yeah, jewelry industry, and if demand on that side goes down, like your general demand is also going to come down, and with that is also the price of gold is also going to come down because we talked about that before. Stock market operates that way. It doesn't really matter if you think that's reasonable or whatever. That's just how it works, and so yeah, there's pretty much that. Honestly, I don't think there are many more reasons why gold might go down in price because gold is a very stable metal. It's very easy to see why it has its value, and I don't think it's overvalued right now. Same with silver, but silver is just way more volatile, so we have to kind of take that one with a grain of salt, and way easier to manipulate. So yeah, put that aside, but you know, we just have to kind of keep an eye on that stuff. So things in general to keep a lookout for, so to say, is in general the stuff with industrial purposing and industrial purposes for gold and silver. We might not even see this decrease in demand from the industrial point of view or the industrial side of the demand for gold and silver, but we may as well, because, you know, we are going to see a decrease in demand in basically everything else over the next couple of months, maybe even years. And you know what? I don't really think it's a bad thing. Because our economies all over the world, it doesn't matter which country you look at, economies got overheated over the last couple of years. We had too much massive growth everywhere, and it gets to the point where you gotta ask yourself, it's gotta stop at some point, and it definitely came to a stop right now. So how long this stop will last? Well, I guess that kind of depends. We'll have to see. But in general, I don't think we're taking a bad turn with gold and silver. It's always going to have some value. What kind of value that is, who cares, really? As long as it's some, because one thing is for certain. Our currencies, they are definitely going to come to a value of very close to zero at some point. So yeah, that's pretty much my take on that. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you want to know anything more, write in the comments below. I'll be very happy to answer that, as always. If you want to, you can rate the video with like a thumbs up or a thumbs down, whatever you might want to do. And if you want to make me happy, you can also subscribe to the channel. That would make me very happy, but I already said that. So yeah, go ahead and do that because I said it twice. Thank you very much for watching. Have a fantastic week, and until next time.